Great to see you here again. My name is Luc de Custer, founder of the Custer Academy. And in this video, we're going to talk about some important elements of communications. But before we start, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look. What are the different elements of communications that we have to consider? And we see that we have following elements. First of all, we have the sender-receiver model, which I discussed in the previous video. Second element is the message. The message itself is very important because without the message, there is no communication. The medium is how are we going to send it from A to B? Are we talking? Are we sending it through email to some electronic post? And we have to look at all these different elements. The feedback, we're giving feedback. Feedback is a very important element because it provides the sender the way the receiver sees the message, and it is possible to adjust to correct that. There are also some different variables we have to look at. We have some settings that we have to consider, and that's basically what is going to happen in the process. These are all the elements that we have to consider. And we will look at those in the following slides. The message itself, when we look at the message, that's the reason why we start with the communication. And the message is the information we send from the sender to the receiver. Now, there may be different purposes why we send a message. It may be just information, sharing facts and data. It can be persuasive, where we ask people to act. It can be entertaining. We share, for example, an article or a video to have some good feeling or just to enjoy some music or some story. The message can be either formal or informal. And a message always has to be clear, concise, have a logical structure. There has to be a request for a response or acknowledgement, and we have to also indicate the recipients, the main person or people we are sending it to, copy conform, so the people in copy, and sometimes you can send a blind copy to people, so you want to inform somebody without letting the others know that that person has been informed about the message. Now, typically, the main people in the message, the main receivers, are the people who are expected to act or to do something with the message. People in copy are informed about what's happening. It's not necessary that they will take some action, but the fact that they are informed about the message, they can interfere or intervene when it is basically necessary for them. The next element we talk about is the medium. And the medium has different elements. The first one, we have to have a technological mature medium. Is it working? Is the technical infrastructure exist? Sending email messages in the era where we didn't have email like we have it today, that would not be a good way to deal with or to use as a medium. So we have to see what is the availability of the medium. We also have to look at time or urgency when we send a letter. We can send a registered letter, express letter, a courier. All these things depends also on the time of delivery and the urgency of the message. Importance, how important is the message? We can have important with high urgency or low urgency, but we also have to see what is the value of the message for the receivers. Geography, where are people located? So sending messages over the ocean is different than delivering a message to your neighbor. Custom, what is the preference for messages? So what is the preference that we have for the messages? We may have certain preferences that we can share with the people. What do you expect from the message? What is the impact you want to get once you send a message? The content, is it one way or is it interactive? Receptivity, how will people react to the message? It can depend on the way you write it, the person it comes from, what's in the message, how will they react. Feedback, do you want to have feedback, or is it just a message to share some information and you don't really want feedback or you don't expect feedback? Obstacles, are there obstacles? Do we want to have the feedback related to the message? Trust and credibility. How is the level of trust and credibility between sender and receiver? Or the medium? The medium can be, in fact, very easy to track, to listen into. What do we have? Do we have encryption and so on? The quantity, the size of the information to be sent. If we have today with our computers, we can send almost anything, but there is a limitation. So we have to adjust the medium to the quantity or the size of the information that we want to send. Quality, what do we want to obtain with the quality of the message or the medium? The infrastructure, how does the company communicate or do the company communicate? These are a number of elements that we have to see. What is the existing infrastructure? Because we have to integrate into that. Thinking styles, so we have to look at the preference of the receiver when we're using the medium. So let's have a look at the feedback itself now. Feedback is very important. So the reason to ask for feedback is to get the feeling if the receiver understood the message as it was intended. For the sender also, it's a very interesting way to verify that the communication was successful. And of course, that the receiver will comply with the content of the message. A feedback message says, of course, confirms that you received the message. Feedback can be positive or negative. A positive feedback on the, let's say, can also be an indication of groupthink and conformity. Now, groupthink and conformity means that the people are not questioning what is happening. And on the other hand, a negative feedback also provides ways how you can communicate the communication and how you can have a better way to deal with all the communication issues. So positive or negative feedback. Positive feedback may also indicate some negative fact. Groupthink and conformity is not something that we want to have because the people start to behave like one body. And when somebody has a different opinion, it's in fact something bad. So basically, these are the elements. Now, when we look at feedback and the environmental parameters, noise is one of the sources for misinterpretation. Noise is one of the things when you will hear the message. For example, a very famous airplane crash in Tenerife, where the pilot received the message cleared for lineup, means you can align the airplane with the runway, where the pilot understood cleared for takeoff, and they didn't confirm the message, so they didn't confirm it, which also led to the fact, basically, that the communication, that the way to communicate with the pilots was changed to avoid misinterpretation. Distance can also be a reason for noise misinterpretations, and the larger the distance, the more issues you can have. Timing of giving the feedback may also have an effect on the reaction, and when you give a feedback on a bad moment, it also may have certain consequences. So you have to select the time when you're giving the feedback. Selective attention also is a problem which leads to focusing on what the receiver wants to hear and not what is important. So it's very important to understand if you suspect selective attention. Language, the way you talk, the way you use words can have a positive or a negative reaction. We're not all native English speakers. We don't all speak, let's say, perfectly English. I don't think English people speak perfect English. It's normal. People make mistakes, use language that may be misunderstood be misunderstood, misinterpreted by the other people, and it can lead to big discussions. We also have to look at some variables that we have. For example, beliefs and values have a very important influence on the communication process. Body language is another important aspect to consider. Non-verbal communication can be either supporting the message or undermining the message. Many other parameters exist. Let's look at eye contact, the environment in which the communication happens, relative positions, language, word usage, and knowledge of the chosen language to communicate. When you suspect there may be problem, it may be better to deal with people through some translator service to be sure that everything is written in the way that you want it to be understood. The setting, well, the setting relates to the time the message is sent and the space in which everything takes place. And we look at the time, when is it sent, how much time is reserved for the communication. The more time you have, the better results you can have with the communication. Space, geographical separation is important, and you have to take it into account when you're communicating over large distances. Also, time zones have an important role here. Structure, what network structure is used. We have all the elements that we can use. What is the availability? What is the effect of the network infrastructure on the communication itself? So basically that was it for this video. I thank you very much, but before leaving, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.